Welcome, everyone. So we were in another room. So now we're here with you guys, ready to throw down the investment party. So we're going to just do a quick recap on introduction because that's what we were doing. We actually were having conversations with other people in the other room. So they might have thought that we abandoned them, but we were actually supposed to be in this room. So here we are. My name is Anie Akpe. I'm founder of African Women in Technology. We do training and development for women throughout Africa. So jumping right on in, ladies first. Danny, up next, introduction.
I guess I had in the other room, so now I can make it more exciting. Hey, my name is
the other room.
Right, we in the other room.
Hi, I'm Danai Musandu. I'm Investor Relations Associate at Goodwell Investments, which is an impact investing firm. Passionate about the continent, passionate about the next generation of African wealth. And yeah, I'm excited to be here and to chat to the 38 people that are watching right now. So please send lots of questions.
Yeah.
I thought there was only going to be about a dozen people here. My name's Tomi Davies. My day job is being grandfather to the growing number of developers. We have here in Nigeria. I am the co-founder of the Lagos Angel Network and for my sins president of the Africa Business Angel Network, which now has 49 networks in 33 African countries.
Wow, y'all have really grown. Look at you guys, just growing and stuff. So anyway, right. So jumping right into it, we just, our discussion, the last discussion we had was just talking about 2019 investments and what we noticed. Right off the bat, we noticed FinTech just received here's dump money, right? So Danny, what else did you notice in 2019 in terms of investments?
Right, yeah. 2019, there was a big focus on logistics, e-commerce, mobility, that specific sector. So saw a lot of new innovations around there, specifically trying to solve for the last mile. So last mile distribution became a very important aspect to that. E-hailing as well was another aspect that became really important. And yeah, I think, that's what I can cover as one of the most important sectors. I'm trying to remember what I said in the other room, the secret room, but it's important. But yeah, Toby, you can fill in the gaps there.
Yeah, what we saw, aside from, of course, fintech, it was almost like every other deal was a fintech deal, we saw money go into clean tech, which is renewables. There were quite a number of interesting things there. One of the big ones for me was this $9 million deal that saw somebody doing industrial strength solar here in Nigeria, which is quite exciting. In terms of what we also did, we did deals in ed tech, but not as large as what we saw with the Andela deal, which still sticks in the mind at about $100 million. And there was some movement also in health tech, which I think is actually going to be increasing. So those were the areas, sort of ed tech, renewables, and health tech.
Okay, so we have some questions already, but we'll get into those. Let's talk about COVID-19 and what we saw as the biggest impact through many sectors. Right off the bat, we know that traveling was impacted. We know that anyone that is doing any type of traveling startup, not even startup, airlines have greatly been impacted. What other industry have you noticed throughout Africa that has been impacted based on COVID-19?
Oh, okay. Yeah,
sorry too.
We're actually in one of them, events. Okay, the event industry moved online almost overnight. And that's what you saw. You saw the rise of Zoom, the rise and rise of Zoom, which is why we're quite excited about discovering Hopin, and other You see the Facebook announcement around even Facebook playing in this space. So events was a big one. Tourism, not just transportation now, but tourism has also taken a very massive hit. Any high touch industry, restaurants, hotels, any high touch industry has taken a massive hit due to COVID-19.
Yeah, so I would just add this. I'm not gonna speak sector specific, but I'm going to speak mechanism maybe specific, if that makes sense. So definitely the startups specifically that have been impacted the most are those that have very direct B2C models. So the ones that had stringent B2C models that needed a physical aspect, of course, have been definitely implicated. So interesting enough, let's take, for instance, I think quite recently, Yoko, which is a big payments platform, card payment platform in South Africa. You would assume, well, it's digital, it's doing payments, it should be able to survive through a lot of this, but they actually had a massive decline in terms of transactions going through their platform, purely for the fact that majority of their customers were your small, medium enterprises, your merchants at your daily markets, your merchants that are selling goods and services to people. So once that's shut down, there's an implication on that. So I would say that even those who had B2B models, where the B aspect that they were connected to were smaller merchants that had to shut down. So for instance, in South Africa, the informal merchant space, so businesses that work directly with informal merchants have been affected because those merchants have had to shut down. Even though in South Africa they've said that they are allowing for informal merchants to operate if they are licensed and they are South African registered, which means that we're looking at maybe 2% that are actively operating. So definitely sectors that have had very high touch, like we were talking about, that really have required that interaction, that physical interaction with their consumers. So on a large part, you are looking at, the businesses that really target mass populations. I think those have really been affected. Another group of people that we seldom don't speak about, but we talk about startup, we're talking about your hairdressers. Those are, heavily impacted. You're talking about people who do your nails. You're talking about your domestic workers. We're talking about your artisan workers. I mean, there's a big ramification for a lot of people who do also plug into the system at the end of the day as people that we want to service. And if they don't have any income, generation, then that also impacts a lot of businesses. So I would say widespread. Everyone has felt some sort of pinch, because at the end of the day, there's quite a ramification for everybody. So there's no sector that hasn't been untouched. It would just be crazy to say that there isn't, that they only some to varying degrees, but yeah, some ramping up, but
exactly. I think it's
yeah. So it's a bit of so yeah, you've got like some really affected, some that have ramped up, but it's an artificial ramp up. It's going to last forever. Maybe
well,
I'm not sure.
Go ahead,
actually, I have a food distribution startup that's gone gangbusters, and we've had to raise money twice in a 1-month period to help them meet the demand they're seeing. So there are those who are actually, as a result of COVID-19, seeing revenue increase beyond what they were previously forecasting. They're few and far between, but I'm pleasantly surprised by what they are doing.
It's like food delivery, because that's what's happening, pretty much across most neighborhoods currently, is that, food delivery platforms are taking off. Even restaurants that didn't have food delivery are able to do that now. So it's actually helping them to be creative in terms of what they're offering. Have you noticed other startups that have actually tweaked what they offered and actually made it better through COVID-19 that you're seeing throughout?
There's another young lady. We were actually looking If truth be told, we didn't invest in her, but she's come back since then, and she was doing fashion. Now she's making masks, and she's making designer masks that actually match with outfits and and all kinds of stuff. And she's found her e-commerce. She's selling all over Instagram, and she says she can't meet demand.
Now, what do you say to entrepreneurs during this time, especially those that may have actually positioned themselves to receive funding, and now they're at a point where it's like a standstill? What should their focus be during this time of standstill? Because I always say, no matter what's going on, always make yourself relevant. But there are other key points that they need to take into consideration right now. So, what advice would you give to them?
So, I mean, I would start off by saying let's classify what kind of entrepreneurs we're talking about and what circumstance are they in. So obviously those that have backers, you ask one goddamn question, which is, where the hell are my backers at this time? Because they need to be there going through this journey with you. And if they're not there, you need to ask some very serious questions as, are these the people that you really need to have around the table for the long haul? Because I think generally across board, any VCs or any investing firms are focusing inwards to look after the portfolios that need actually the most assistance at this time, which actually makes sense. And also to keep committed to, whatever commitments they may have made in terms of term sheets and so forth. So, that's the first category. So first category often of entrepreneur that already has backers, then I would say, make sure you're focusing inwards, you have enough support, and that are there to support you are actually available to do so. And even if that means putting money on the table, then I think they should be doing that and working along those terms. Then you have the startup, I would say, that's just started. You've just entered the space. Maybe you don't have some backers. This is not the time to be burning any sort of cash. Unless anything that you are doing right now can create an MVP that's related to COVID that can get your numbers up and running, that you could sustain yourself and that you can show that you have enough traction, then I would say, put your energies towards that. Other than that, like burning a lot of cash, where you're not going to be generating anything and where there's a little bit of a hesitation, then that might not be the thing to do. Then the other category, which is, businesses that are in the fundraising mode. Maybe they've already, had existing backers and they were at the middle of raising around. I think that you're going to find that there are a few facilities that are now cropping up that are COVID-19 fund ready facilities that are kind of trying to plug in that gap. And so I would also, say, yes, firstly, internally look at what existing investors are there to actually assist you to do that round. But on the most part, those that you've already had kind of advanced conversations with or engaging in conversations with, then you should, look at that. The other big bit of advice that I would give, which maybe we don't talk about, but that's really important, is the psychology of entrepreneurs that are going to have to start retrenching and cutting salaries. And this shedding of fat is just going to be the reality of most people, and everybody is going through it. So it's not something special to startups. It's across board. People are being affected, and I would say be kind to yourself, because I can only imagine the idea of having to know that you're going to have to cut some salaries of people who are dependent on your business. And this is the territory that we're in. So be wise about that. Make sure you rope in the people that need to be roped in very quickly into those conversations, people that you want to retain on a long-term basis. They should be those conversations. It's important. And those that that you could lose but replace, it's also good to, give them enough of time to be able to find alternatives, also try to assist them to find those alternatives as well, to make that an easy landing for them. And the other big thing is it's never going to be easy. It's not going to be easy on you. Your psyche is not going to be okay, but you need to find ways and you need to find people that you can speak to speak through this. It's also a traumatic aspect. And actually, a lot of the times, people don't really talk about entrepreneurs going through post-traumatic stress when it's fundraising, post-traumatic stress when the business is about to think, and those are real things. And I think we should also encourage an ecosystem and a community of people that, you know, uplifts and supports these entrepreneurs who really make our economies tick. So that's the kind of advice that I give, which is a little bit of love and a little bit of practicality, good balance of those two.
And that's very meaningful. Yeah. So, I mean, it is true. A lot of people are thinking that, you know, maybe if they spent money here and there, it would make an impact. Right now, and I'd say don't spend money. Do things that keep you relevant, as was mentioned before. Do things that keep you relevant in whatever you're launching, but also pay attention to what's happening within the market of what is needed. So with that, let's jump into, we're now in COVID. This is our reality in my mind for the next 2 years in terms of how the business will try to readjust and realign itself. There's a lot going on. Events probably will not take place until end of next year, maybe, if then, just because of the social distancing, until they make sure that all these vaccines work. So what platforms and what sectors do you think might receive investments? Because I know I just saw the other day, data is still getting funded. So Okra got funded. So what other investments have you noticed that's still happening during COVID? Tomi.
Oh, well, we're in the middle of a couple of deals as I speak. We're going to close one next week. It's fintech. But the reason we're doing that is because we believe it's got one of the strongest post-COVID opportunities going. Why? We're sitting in Nigeria, and this is a very Nigeria-specific matter. Oil has tanked, so we can see the revenue of the country is not coming alive anytime soon. Okay, we've got COVID as an overlying factor. So we see the government sort of starting to focus on gas and agriculture. But that is not going to revive the local currency. So we're starting to see external investments as one of the buyouts for people who are sitting on tons of cash. And that's what this particular startup is addressing. So we're quite excited about that. So plays like that take advantage of local or regional circumstances due to COVID are still going to get funding. Why is that? Because the economies are tanking. We're going into recession globally, whether people want to accept that or not. I don't care how much they throw at it. Okay, we are going into a global recession. So those of you who don't understand that, go read 2008, 2009. VC funding is not going to be available anytime soon at the levels we saw it in previous years. So if you take that, then where the plays are going to go, the people that are going to see the money are going to be two types. Those that are blindingly obvious that this is innovation that will work and is getting traction, it will always find funding. And those who have networks. I cannot overemphasize networks. Who you network to will determine who gets funded.
Let's go back to that.
Yeah, please.
Let's go back to. Right. Let's go back to that statement of networks, because a lot of people are like, how am I going to network? My dear, we're sitting in these four walls. We cannot even look outside and say hi, you know?
Do you know how many tweets, if you know how many Twitter DMs I'm getting, it's unbelievable.
Yeah, but we know you. We know you.
You're not the only one. I can list you. I'm quite sure Danai is in the same situation. All investors. Okay, but you get it from social media, you get it from your friends. Please take a look at this. I've got this, I've got that. That's what I mean. Our referential integrity is going to become increasingly critical.
Yeah, and can I just add on that network?
Please, go ahead.
Because it's important. So I think actually the barrier has now been reduced in a significant way. And why it's reduced in a significant way is, one, we're not too busy traveling. We don't have time to not have a quick 30-minute call with you. We're actually now glued to our screens. That means we're looking for webinars. It means we're looking at our emails. It means we're actually reading our emails. You know, we have to go through the emails and read them. So we, besides Tomi, but the point is the barrier of entry has now reduced. The accessibility of people you thought weren't accessible is actually now quite easier. Events are now coming online. And I think that I kind of love this platform and the way that, you know, you can choose to tap in and out and network with to that kind of creativity is going to actually allow for a new round of engagement, which is important. And I actually think it's a great humbler for the VC space now. Now we have to look at deals in a different way. The other thing I also wanted to state is that there are facilities that are opening up that are specifically around COVID. And the best VCs are going to be the ones that can generate a fantastic pipeline of that. So that means that right now the VCs actually need to be busy knowing what the hell is going on. So you need to be busy knowing what the hell is going on. It means you are attending webinars. It means you are actually now looking at a LinkedIn conversation when someone says, I've got this kind of startup happening in X, Y, and Z. So in a way, the dynamic has also shifted because one, it is like what Tomi's talking about, it's reputation. You know, which VC has a fantastic pipeline, they know people, they can, you know, they can direct the funds to a fantastic pipeline. So we're also busy also trying to compete, you know, for the facility. We're trying to collaborate so we can, you know, say, yeah, you know, we know how to get the pipeline to you. So I also encourage everyone to, bombard all the VCs. We also have big institutions creating all these facilities for us to say, yes, we need to deploy the capital out to the startups. The startups need us. So, I mean, that's important. So I would say the barriers of entries have reduced.
Did y'all hear that? They both said it. So when you swamp their DMs, don't, you know, listen, they're both on LinkedIn, find them on Twitter, you know, tell them to give you the list. But, you know, let's break down those platforms because a lot of people need to understand. Like one thing I noticed throughout, I don't care where you are in the world, except China, the educational, the ability to, you know, continue education just simply crashed in a lot of countries that you didn't think was actually going to crash. You know, so would you say that EdTech, if EdTech was your thing and you picked it up before and you dropped it off now, would now be a good time to start picking it up again?
Is this for Tomi or I? Which one? Who wants to take?
Mountain climbing.
Yes.
So, you know what I think that's become abundantly clear about COVID-19 for everybody is that if you're not investing in something that's resilient, and when I'm saying resilient, so I think we need to change our notion of what's resilient. For me, and from my experience, so this is now more personal, I've been reflecting and I've come to this realization, investments have to be in things that are essential for people. And when I'm talking about essential for people, I really mean it needs to have an effect for the mass population. A majority of our continent is informal. So I think now the challenge is that VC needs to really start thinking quite hardly about how are we going to start investing in businesses that are really creating solutions that are inclusive of everyone. Because if anything, we've been shown more than ever now that resilient businesses are those that actually have the ability to think just outside of the 1%. It's the ability to really think for the longevity, for inclusion of everybody. So, I mean, it's not a direct response to what you're saying, but more of like a philosophical way I've been feeling and thinking about things. Which is why I'm also quite excited that we have done investments that we've done that are in the impact space, because a majority of our investments have been able to be resilient to this COVID crisis. And actually more so when really it does come to, when we're seeing the ramifications of a COVID for the majority of the people, I think it's even more important that we still create more accessibility for that group, not for us who have the luxury and the privilege to sit on a screen and have a conversation right now. You know, COVID lockdown is a privilege. This is all just a privilege. This is what it is. So we have the luxury to do so. So we should think about outside of our privilege.
Okay, so Tomi, to you with the network, ABAN Angels Network, which you mentioned it's in 49, correct? 49?
and 30.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, 49. So what advice are you giving them? Because those local angel investors are within the community. So have you received feedback from them, and what is your training that's being offered to them in terms of looking for local solutions? Because as you mentioned, local solutions is becoming key, because not everywhere is a broad brush. There are things that are able to withstand COVID just because of the local solutions that's being created in that community. So what are you telling the angel investors so that our participants know, hey, I know that angel investor, I know what to talk to them about?
Well, what we're saying is look for strong regional plays. Okay. We used to talk about global, but that's what's changed in the message is we're saying look for strong regional plays now. So if there's a startup that's saying I can do West Africa and you can show me how you're going to do Francophone and Anglophone, and it's a credible story, then that's what we're talking about here. But I wanted to skip back just for a second to EdTech, because again, those who know me know right from one laptop per child, I've been advocating EdTech as the way forward, simply because the nature of education has changed from learning by rote to learning on demand. And that's how we need to develop human beings now so that they can solve the problems we couldn't anticipate. Case in point is what we're facing in COVID. Nobody's seen this before, so you can't say, let's go back and do it this way. You've got to have pattern recognition capabilities that enable you to problem solve systematically. And those are the kind of human beings you've got to be generating. So when you look at what Danai was saying about impact, that's how EdTech has always been seen as an impact play. But I think that's one fundamental change that's going to happen now. When Get Smarter went for 100 million, everybody sort of said, wow, okay, that's interesting. And then everybody went back, it was business as usual. Then I think it was early this year or very, very late last year, TLCom did U-Lesson, okay, out here in Jos. And people say, oh, it's because it's Sim Shagai and, Sim is known for Conga and everything else. But look at what U-Lesson is doing now. It's almost the de facto secondary school platform for Nigeria. So these are the kind of plays that we're going to see, not as impact only, but pure commercial plays. And I've always believed anyway that you can do good and do well, but that's going to come front and center on EduTech. And by the way, yeah, we're doing quite well too. My EduTech play actually paid a dividend. They're not exiting. The founder says we're not exiting, but we're sitting on enough cash. Dear investors, thank you very much. Here's some money. Okay, if you want to look at, can I do a plug? They're called
I was waiting for you. I've been waiting. I'm like, okay, can you tell us what it is? Because some of these people, to tell you the truth, like the solution that you've invested in may just be in one country and someone else is working on something. Maybe they might have a local solution with the same similar type of platform. So by all means, plug.
It's called FlexiSAF, FLEXISAF. Okay, and they've done so well. They even started a foundation. That's how good these kids are. Well, I can say kids, I'm a grandfather. So, but in terms of angel investors, for the angel investors listening to this, okay, startups are about growth. And where you're going to see growth right now are in regional plays, because global logistics has been turned on its head and it's not about to come alive anytime soon. You can take that as read. So you need to look regionally and look at those that have growth potential regionally. And just like Danai was saying, these are going to be impact plays that actually touch human lives. If they do that, guess what? The demand isn't going, I don't care what COVID or whatever you want to call it. People will always eat. People will always clothe themselves. People are always going to talk to each other, and they're going to have somewhere to sleep at night. Those things are not going anywhere anytime soon. The fundamentals remain because we're human beings.
Right. I agree to the 10th power. So now, go ahead. Yeah, go ahead.
No, I was saying amen, having church. Remember.
All right. So now, What exactly, Danny, what is your company looking to fund at this moment in time?
So actually, it's along the line of what Tomi is talking about, like people have to eat. So agri is a sector that we're actually looking at, and energy, because those are things that are essential and happening. And in terms of the agri play, we're looking more at businesses that are being very smart along the value chain. So how are they adding value along the value chain? We don't do primary agriculture. That's not the risk that we take. So we're looking at the agri plays with the use of technology. That's important. Second, obviously, energy. The energy play in terms of better accessibility, maybe smart ways of delivering energy to people, and specifically actually in Nigeria. So our team has brought something that's interesting, but I can't disclose, obviously, that we're also looking at. And so I think those two sectors right now are important. Definitely we're ramping up more on our e-commerce and logistics bit for last mile, because we've also seen how important that is in terms of getting goods across. I mean, for instance, in South Africa, we've just come out of lockdown level 5. Where level 5 essentially had no movement of anyone, no alcohol, by the way. We had no liquor for a really long time.
Meanwhile, in New York City, everyone's drunk as a skunk.
It makes me think I'm crazy. It's the lack of But I mean, we've had such a strong lockdown that the logistics play has been so important, and actually important for getting goods to people in more disadvantaged areas, because accessibility has just not been the same in more privileged areas. So, I mean, we're still looking in, I think those 3 key sectors will still be important. Education as well. So Tomi, please send those education deals for us as well. We'd love to look at them.
Okay.
Also be important. So still focusing on the main sectors that we've looked at, but I think those 3 and 4 are quite important and where we're focusing our lens right now.
Okay. All right. And go ahead, Tomi, because along with what you were going to say, please add where our participants could look up the angel investors in order to see what's happening locally in their region. But continue.
Okay. Let me answer that first, then I'll come back. The angel database is work in progress, but if you go on to abanangels.org, you will find the community listed there for your city. If it isn't there, pop me an email, td@tvcng.com, and I'll see what I can do.
And
yeah, go ahead. No, go ahead.
Add, so we also are, so we can't invest in every company across the continent, granted and given, but we have been, approached by various people who would like to know about pipelines. So actually on our website, if you go, if you're very early stage, maybe not where we would be looking at businesses, we have an applications form. If you fill out all of that information there, we're building up the database so that we can actually pass that on and make sure that you get plugged to the people that have these facilities and so forth. So if you're also interested, you're able to go to our website and fill out the application form there that just has details about your business.
Yes, I think we need to talk about that because there's a couple of initiatives ongoing around actually understanding who's doing what. And for example, I'm sitting on about maybe $250,000 worth of interest fee loans available for startups, but the criteria are hard. Okay, it's back to what you were talking about, VCs, deal sourcing, exactly. So I've got some of that, but you've got to have made a certain level of revenue, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So there's a lot of things happening there. But what I wanted to talk about also that I don't think we've mentioned at all is one of the biggest growth areas coming out of COVID-19 is going to be Meditech. Anie, you're muted.
It's okay. I had it. Yeah, I had myself muted. Someone actually had that question. I was going back, scrolling through the questions.
Okay.
Talking about investments in pharmaceutical. So let's jump into that now, because that was one of the questions.
I'm not a big fan of pharma. I'm notorious. I'm anti-big pharma.
Anti-big pharma guy.
Okay, so when I heard AstraZeneca's got a potential vaccine or something like that, I shudder. Okay, I'm a big fan of preventive health. Okay, and preventive medicine. I believe, okay, in eating right, exercising right, and getting the right kind of environment for human survival. And that's where I believe our focus really, really should be. And even COVID-19 is proving that. The healthy guys, okay, Boris Johnson's an exception, but the healthy people, okay, actually get through this. And that's really where I think our focus should be. So there are a couple of health tech plays we're looking at right now that I find quite exciting. And I think that's another area that we're going to see a fair bit of money go into.
Yeah. So I would say, I mean, from our particular lens about health tech or health in general as a sector focus, for us, where it would be more interesting is actually where there's convergence. So where we're seeing health and financial inclusion coming together. So why is that the focus? Purely for the fact that actually another big issue is actually people aren't insured to get health. So the gap that people have to have, that they have to make up just to get the kind of assistance that they need is significant, and significantly more for those who are less advantaged. So I think for us, the play that's actually really interesting is where you do have a health tech aspect, you know, that needs some insurance. So you've got the finance and the health coming together. There, for me, that's interesting. That's very interesting, because then now we're also, because structurally, we can't structurally change the healthcare system. That's not, and VC's not going to do that. We just don't have enough money for that. Like, it's not happening that way. Governments aren't going to be plugging in. So for me, it's more about the accessibility. What smart ways are businesses going to be thinking about providing better access for people? So for instance, I am a fan. We're not invested in them, but LifeBank. So just a personal story for myself. My dad just recently was in hospital and they couldn't find blood in Zimbabwe in the midst of this COVID situation. And in my head, I was like, wow, imagine you had LifeBank in Harare, how important. But, you know, aspects like that where you're working with the infrastructure that exists, but you're trying to make it so much better so it can communicate with each other to provide better access for people. Those plays, for me in the health space, are very interesting plays.
I have one for you I'm looking at, I'll share.
Okay.
Okay. So we just got like a 3-minute warning from the organizers. So I'm going to wrap it up by asking the both of you, within observation only, what platform would you say has technically quasi-won, or has done very well during COVID-19?
When you're saying platform, elaborate?
It could be website, it could be app, mobile, whomever, whatever sector. Who do you think, have you observed that you're like, wow, they adapted, they adjusted, and they're still making money? You know, I know you mentioned one, Tomi, so you got to mention another one because that was one you invested in. I'm talking about, from your observation, who did you see that you were like, wow, these guys really revamped what they did, and look at them. They're actually, you could see, you know, their revenue even, you know, without doing anything. Is there anyone that comes to mind?
Yeah. Yes, please. Ngozi, take a bow. If you're listening, Ngozi needs to take a bow. This is one of them. Social Media Week, okay, Lagos, adapting this way. This is the first time I'm seeing this done so elegantly and as a conference, and done well. I don't know what the results are like, but I can tell you from where I sit, I've enjoyed the experience, and I'm quite sure other people have. I've been on Zoom conferences. I've been on, what was it we were on yesterday? I can't even remember. I got off of that. There's free conference. There's a whole host of them. But my experience in the last 45 minutes, really, I think Social Media Week, we just check about.
Right. So we have one. And what about you, Danny? Who do you see pops into your head? You're like, wow, they did a really good job.
Well, so it's funny because actually, so funny enough, I'm going to mention one, and it's not an African play. It's
okay.
Most people might be. It's actually a house party. And why I find it quite fascinating, so House Party and Tiger King, so Netflix did well this year.
Oh yeah, that's true.
So besides that, but what I actually find quite interesting about House Party is the interface, excuse my French to the 42 people listening, is shit. It's really, really bad. So it is the crappiest interface that you actually have, but it has managed to attract so many people. We don't even know what they are doing with this data that they're gathering on us, but the concept of being able to move within rooms, to open a door, to play games with your friends, to be honest, it couldn't have come at a better time, and more so for a person like myself who's quarantining all by myself. So I must say, for a nonsense app, if you really look at it for what it is and what it do, hey.
Yep. It's so funny because I loved it, but then I got annoyed because that meant that anybody could pop into any conversation that I was having. I was like, oh no, time to turn this off real quick because it was very, very annoying. But I mean, I love it in terms of being able to just jump on a call and talk to your friends if that's what you're doing, because I know a lot of people are using it for networking. Like their happy hour segment is using that with everyone with their drinks or whatever it is you got going on, and everyone just there doing whatever, and anyone could jump in. So yeah, it is crap, but I turned off all my notifications because I'm like, not available, not available, not available. So I want to thank you guys because I think our time is really up. I want to thank you guys for participating. Naturally, we all know that we probably will end up hosting things on this platform again in various forms. So thank you everyone for joining us today. We really appreciate you guys and your questions. And the organizer is telling me get off because the time is up. So thank you everyone for joining us, and I'll be in contact with you guys shortly. Bye.
Thank you.
Bye, everyone.
Bye-bye.
All right, bye.
Everybody else.